Welcome to the Space of Lupe Castro, the podcast where we explore creativity, sustainability, and fashion, and how creators can continue building their projects without losing their essence. Here you'll find stories that you've never heard of before, unique conversations, and a new way of experiencing fashion, and another way of seeing the world. So if you haven't already, subscribe on YouTube and Spotify so you don't miss an episode. And guess where I am today? I'm in Vietnam, and the reason I'm in Vietnam is to see my guest that's here with me, Yossi Fisher. Yossi, it's been a while.
It's been a while, Lupe.
And what can I say? I think I'm going to start with, I think we met 10 years maybe ago. And like around, well, maybe not, met around 2010, 2012?
2012.
2012. And so my first impression was the beard, the dress. I mean, it was like a tunic, right? But to me, you know, and presence. When you opened your mouth, obviously you were Canadian. I mean, American, you know, you had the twang. And I didn't know your background. I just thought, wow, this is different. This is a different person. So, was that, I mean, I'm going to start with, was that fully you at that point?
Yeah. First of all, this is super awesome. I'm really excited to be doing this. It's always fully me, you know. During my time in the fashion industry, that was the most wonderful thing about it. It was that I could just be fully me without like going overboard to be something I wasn't. Being me was pretty expressive at the gates. And so like, yeah, everything in fashion weeks, all the shows that you saw me at, that was me. I literally would wear the same things at fashion week as I would wear every day, like when we would go for coffees or like, you know, to whatever the case was. So definitely different looks over the years. I have never really kept like one structured style or identity, but always authentically me.
So you can't really say that sort of look was a protection. A lot of people use fashion as a protection. So basically it was just being your authentic self.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that also that people actually reduced you to that particular image? I mean, it was quite an in-your-face look. So, I mean, whether you like it or not, you would have noticed people looking, right? So it's not...
Yeah.
I mean, so do you think people just thought, oh, right, okay, so he's just some weird... I mean,
well,
did you think that people didn't get to know you? They just actually just...
Well, that's the thing. Like, I never really cared about random people. And the people that knew me would see me dressed differently all the time. So, like, that was the cool thing. Like, I never even had, like, one specific style where some people are like, I'm goth. And that's who I am all the time. Like,
True.
Sometimes I'd rock out goth. Sometimes I'd be a lot more, like, punk and rock. Other times I would be sporty. And it was really actually what caught a lot of people's attention that saw me more often. And that was really cool because whenever they saw me, it was me. But I never had, like, one fixed, like, this is me, this is my style, this is my era. It was like, this is how I feel like dressing today. And that would change. It would be, you know, for fashion weeks, obviously I would show up with like some of like my most fulfilling outfits. But it was always still me. So like I said, you'd see me walking down Brick Lane in the same stuff. But one day you might see me in more like sporty stuff. And it would still be a vibe. You know what I mean? Nothing that I ever did was basic, but it was always what I felt like that day. So that was more exciting. It wasn't about what people that didn't know me, because if they saw me that one day, that was who I was that day.
Yeah, but it was still Yossi.
Always Yossi.
It's always a mix-up. So it was still you. And that's the beauty about styling, although I know that you didn't really do it for styling. You were just actually using clothing to show parts of you that you enjoyed. I mean, you know, people that do it naturally, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
It's like a canvas. So I do get it. It wasn't done for. But you did grow up in fashion. And did you always think you would stay in fashion? I mean, maybe you can give us a little bit of a hint of what your background and why. I mean, you were in fashion, but I mean, it wasn't just you, it was your family, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting conversation when people say like my family's in fashion. So I say that my dad was in clothing over fashion,
Slightly
right?
different,
I think that like there's that distinguishing factor. My dad was a textile developer his entire life, pretty much. He would develop textiles, put patents on fabrics, and then sell them as private label. So I was constantly around the business and technical aspects of clothing pretty much my whole life. So there was constantly like a house full of samples and lab dips and like, all these random folders of tech packs. And it was always kind of like an industry conversation, right? Like whatever case that was. Less creative, more business and technical. My mom used to have her own clothing shops, and my mom, I would say, was way more fashion. Very well dressed, the kind of person that people would always look at and be like, what are you wearing? And she's not the type of person that would really wear like labels or like fake labels. She would just go around to really cool shops in different parts of the world and find some really cool things and put it together with her big bangles and her jewelry. And like, she was just always like so expressive. And I think that was a big part of me growing up where, now that I think about it, it's like my dad was very like business technical.
Yeah.
And my mom was very like expressive, creative. And they were both very much themselves. You know what I mean? Like in the mix of all of that, neither one of them was pretending. They were just expressing who they were through what they did. And so I think that blend lent into me growing up with it around me. But to be honest, I've always had a vibe. Like you can ask my mom, like at 5 years old, she couldn't tell me what to wear.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I don't know. I couldn't. It just like we'd be like in the alleys of Byway, which is like just some like random shop that, you know what I mean? And I would just put on whatever I wanted and I wouldn't wear what I didn't. And then just over the years, like I found fashion as like this way of expressing who I was, understanding who I was at different times, different social groups and scenes. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. But obviously your family wasn't important.
Yeah.
Which is
Absolutely.
understandable. I mean, that the way you dress. So, did you always think you'd stay in fashion? Do you think? I mean, it's so expressive of what you are.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing. Like, because like I'm not in fashion anymore.
No.
I'm not in the industry anymore. But I was for 20 years. And honestly, for the time that I was in the industry, it really served who I was. And even now, like when I look back on fashion, I'm like, oh, the industry, like, oh, it was so this or so that. Like, yeah, you met some people that were jaded or some people that were, you know what I mean, not the nicest of people. But there was wonderful people in the industry. And like I loved, you know what I mean, the people that we connected with, we got a chance to meet.
Yeah, that's right.
Really inspired people, really creative people, a lot of entrepreneurs. So like I was in it and I was in it for 20 years. I lived in all over the world doing what I did, you know what I mean? Like,
so already there was a little bit of traveling going on in your head.
Yeah, pretty much,
But I mean, the thing is that you didn't think, oh, I'm not going to stop doing this. I mean, you were enjoying it and you did actually kind of think, well, I'll be doing something. I mean, you didn't think, oh, it's going to finish now. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, exactly. Because the cool thing about my fashion journey is that like I was in fashion for 20 years. But I did like 7 or 8 different things in the industry. So I kind of like started again within the same industry like many times, right?
Yeah,
so
no, I get you.
I got out of high school, started my clothing shop, and then I worked with my dad, private label development, manufacturing. And then I worked with a friend of mine. We did like music videos, celebrity styling, red carpets. Then I did editorials, and then I did project management, production, art direction, creative direction.
But it's still in that same industry in a way.
But it was different like expressions of who I was at different times.
You found so many things to do within that industry that you enjoyed. So it wasn't like something that you thought would change, right?
Not until it did.
So the first big shift. Looking back, obviously, what triggered that change? Because I think it happened once. I mean, I'm sure it happened in Fashion Week, or maybe not. Maybe it was already happening, and then I think
it was interesting. You know what? I've been, like I said, I was in the industry for like 20 years, and I pretty much did everything that I set out to do. I did really big fashion editorials. I sat a lot of front rows. I was at the, like fashion weeks of the world, and really enjoyed a lot of that. Met some really wonderful people, but I got invited to be the opening keynote speaker at the Fashion Innovation Summit.
Yeah.
And that was a pinnacle because it was thought leaders and tastemakers from the industry, like from all over the world, New York, London, Milan, Berlin, like, you know, all these places. And I was the opening speaker, so I opened up the conference and gave my talk on fashion as a catalyst for change, right? And it was a wonderful chat, a wonderful talk, and a great event. But when I got off that stage, I sat down, and as I was listening to all the other people speaking and like how knowledgeable they were and like sharing all this stuff, I sat there and I was like, I think I'm done.
But why? I'm always intrigued by this because, I mean, all of a sudden people could say, oh, you enjoyed the stage. I mean, you know, it's a different it's totally different. But is it just because all the other people, I assume, were in fashion as well?
Yeah. I mean,
so maybe they weren't, you know.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll be honest. Like, I was just like done with people. I was just done with the industry and all the bullshit and just the people talking and not doing anything and like the same conversations rolling over. And it was like, you know, after COVID, with everybody talking about how shows were going to change and brands were going to change and this was going to change.
That was a bit disappointing, definitely.
You know, I came back to London for the first live fashion week, and then it was just the same shows and the same stuff. And like, fast forward a couple of years from then was when I made my kind of departure from the industry. It was just people talking about the same stuff and over and over, no change. And it was just like, and listen, there's some really wonderful people doing wonderful things in the industry, right? But for me, after 2 decades in the industry, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm just not inspired by it. Like, nothing about it. And nothing was changing. I was doing what I was doing, but it wasn't about just making more money or getting more projects doing what I was doing. I was just done. I was changing. I evolved. The world has changed. Like, the world evolved. And, like, it was just time for me to evolve with it and understand what that was. Because I wasn't like, I'm going to stop doing fashion and I'm going to start doing this. I was like, well, then who am I? Yeah. Like, I'm 20 years in the industry. Like you said, I come from a family that has that background. And I decided to disappear from the world and figure out what I am without that identity and like without that purpose and mission. And
so what happened? I mean, like, for example, you actually saw this on stage. You were a keynote speaker at the Fashion Innovation thing that they did. And you then obviously carried on in the industry a little bit, kind of, right. And then it took a couple of years, because when I met you afterwards, I know that you were already talking quite openly about the fact that you thought when I saw you that time at London Fashion Week, you said, I think this is the last time I'm going to do it because it just feels I don't know. I mean, you were disheartened, and that took how long? 2 or 3 or 2 years? 2 years?
No, actually. So
because I can't remember. Because I think we had the pandemic in between.
We had the pandemic in between. So before the pandemic, I was already kind of at a place where we were at these shows and doing all this stuff. And I was like, you know, there was a few, like, listen, fashion was innovating to a certain extent. But I guess, like I said, I did so many things in the industry, and I had so many perspectives of it. And I just was getting kind of bored by it. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's valid. It's just kind of what happened. Yeah, you know?
I mean, you don't know. Obviously, it comes in your head and you might think, one of those
things.
Age, or it might be something, whatever you want to excuse you want to give it, but then it gradually
because then I'm like, but I didn't just dip then. I was like, let me see how I can innovate, what I can do. Let's see how people are happening. And then when COVID came out, that was actually a really exciting time because people were starting to talk different and and do things differently because they didn't have a choice.
So how long was that from that initial thing? It must have been about 2 or 3 years. I'm trying to make people understand that sometimes it takes a while.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, so for me, the awareness of like, I'm looking like this industry is kind of like not fulfilling me as much as it used to was probably about a year or two before COVID. COVID hit, I got re-inspired for a lot of different reasons. And then when the world opened back up, and I was at the first live fashion event, fashion week in London. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
We met and sat there.
Yeah, that's right.
And then that was about a year or so of like just seeing what was going on, and
because you hit Milan as well.
Yeah, I hit Milan exactly. So yeah, I was living in Milan at the time, and then when I did the Fashion Innovation Summit was about a year and a half after that, and literally after I did that talk, I sat down in my chair and I knew that it was done. Like,
so it was after. I thought it was first.
No, it was after. The Fashion Innovation Summit happened November 2022. And I literally got off that stage and I sat down and I was super happy with my talk. And I was super grateful to be around such amazing people. But I sat there and I'm like, I don't fucking care anymore.
Right. So,
like, I just don't care.
So
like,
the first thing, I mean, I'm trying to get an idea of how long it takes people sometimes, because, you know, people always think or wait for that moment of, oh, well, I'm not happy now, but all of a sudden, wow, bang, it happened. I know what I want to do, but it doesn't. It takes a while, even for someone like you that's really in touch with themselves.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not like something that people are going to get a flash. Some people do, obviously, but, you know, don't despair if you don't.
Yeah, I think that like I'm not making brash decisions on what I do. I'm much more aligned with like who I am. And I think it got to the point where I sat down and I was like, I know this isn't me anymore. You know, and it took some time from that initial like, what's going on here, to being like, but when I got off that stage and I sat down, that's where it clicked. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm like, this is when I say goodbye. And that was that. And listen, that was a really big thing for me, because my identity was wrapped in it, who I was, what I did, my social clout, my business clout, my ego, skills, like everything. It was like everything was, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it was like, well then, if I'm not that, well then, you know, I had like a Zoolander moment. Like in the movie Zoolander, there's a scene where he like, you know, runs out on the street and he like looks at this puddle and he's like, who am I?
Yeah, I remember.
And I had my Zoolander moment and I was like, who am I without this? And that's where everything changed for me. Yeah,
that is a tough moment. I imagine you could have been a bit scared, right, Yossi?
I had no idea what, like I knew I wasn't going back. But I had no idea what going forward meant. And that was scary. But I knew there was no choice. But yeah, that was really, I was like, I don't know. I mean, but I was so burned out at that point in time that I wasn't like, I'm going to figure this out. I was like, I need a moment.
Well, that's also quite brave, because people sometimes then fill it up with other bits and pieces in order to forget that moment, which is hard. So, sure. So at that point, you went where?
So very interesting. So I was going to take at that point in time, like I said, it was November 2022. It was the end of the year anyways. I was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to like go to my parents' place. I was traveling a lot at the time. Yeah. I didn't really have a home. Early that year, I got divorced and I was traveling around the world and I was just tired. And so I was just going to go to my parents' place for a few months, November, December, January, relax, take it easy.
Can I just ask you, do you think that, I mean, because a lot of people, when they have emotional problems and you got divorced, do you think that also gives you a jolt, or do you think you already know that something is not going, or do you put that like that's another, you know, like, oh my God, I got it?
I think So I think that the year that I disappeared from the world and from the industry, a lot of things were falling apart in my life. I was stepping away from a lot of things. A lot of things weren't coming together. I was a little bit lost and confused in terms of like where I was going, not where my new clients were coming from, but like what this all meant and why, you know what I mean? So I think that with everything that happened that year for me, which is its own TED Talk.
Yeah, Anno Horribilis, as they said in England with the Queen. Yeah,
it was wild. I think that like everything at the end of that year made me realize that like it was just time to just, you know, stop fighting this identity, stop trying to figure out this life, and just say, what if I just leave it all and start fresh and like learn about who I am without all these things? Like what happens then? Because everything else just wasn't it for me anymore. And that started the journey of everything that I do. And it was scary, but I didn't have a choice. I didn't like, there was nowhere else to go for me.
Yeah, but that takes quite a lot of courage, because as I said, a lot of people will get to that point and think, oh no, come on, you just got to keep going. And then obviously I do believe that at some point you do crash horrifically. But it's still hard.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? So it's like, what I did was always an expression of who I was and how I was inspired. So even in fashion, I did so many things in the industry because I was inspired in different ways to express myself in different ways, different skills, capabilities, different, you know, versions of, you know, myself in the industry. And so for me, everything that I've done has always mirrored who I am at the time. And so that's what happened. So at the end of all of that, I realized that I was evolving beyond interests of the industry. And so I had to see where that went, because I never worked a job, right? I've always worked for myself and I've always been able to navigate that, but I've always been interested in the industry in some capacity or not. All of a sudden I was evolving, the world was changing, and the things that used to interest me didn't. And so I was like, okay, well then I need to start leaning into the unknown of the things that are drawing me in versus the things that are familiar, because it was my evolution. Like my life is my evolution. And so what I do is inspired by that. And that's why for me it was time.
Going back to fashion, you know, taking it into fashion, which is the realm that I do.
Of course.
Do you think that fashion helps people to find themselves? I mean, can you see in any scenario where you think that might, or do you think it's a more of a just hide behind it thing? Or is it just both? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that it's both. So I think that like if you're leaning into anything authentically, then you will absolutely find yourself through that, or aspects of yourself, right?
Do you think it can help?
Of course. It was wonderful for me, right? So it's interesting. So nothing's binary, right? Everything's kind of on this polarity spectrum of like, well, where do you sit on it, right? So for me, I was like really bullied growing up. So being unique was deemed for me through my traumas not okay. So I tried to blend in and still try to understand myself in that mix. Fashion opened up when it started becoming like more of like, you know, I got into business opportunity. Like I started my clothing store. That was my in. But then I realized like, oh, now I'm being admired for my uniqueness. And my uniqueness, the fashion industry gave me a space to be like, you can be whoever you want here.
Yeah, the arts do that, which is amazing.
Which is wonderful. So like it really allowed me to explore my style, my vibe, my lifestyle, like every aspect of me in a way that was like less judgmental than the rest of the world. And so I found myself in that.
So you do think it helps?
I do. Now, there's also the other side of that, hiding behind fashion and labels and cloud and front rows. And like, listen, we've both seen people lose themselves in that as well.
Yeah, totally.
So I think it's kind of being as self-aware as you possibly can. Like, what are you doing, right? So for example, like, you know, at fashion weeks, there's a lot of peacocks. Yeah. Right? People that just like put on every, like their one outfit they bought for fashion week, and they're coming around and they're peacocking themselves around, hiding behind this facade that's not them, because they're like a lawyer or a teacher or something during the day. Nothing wrong with that.
But could be.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
And also some of them, maybe this is like a bit like carnival, you know, it's your alter ego.
Exactly, which is fair, right? I'm all about expression.
But then you go back into your little kind of home.
But it's like, is it authentic, or are you hiding behind it, right?
Yeah,
and that's the thing. So that's what I was saying before. Even for me, like when you saw me fashion weeks or rolling around London or wherever you saw me in the world, it's like I'm always me. I'm not one caricature of this person that I'm trying to hold up a front for. So I was able to find myself in the industry, but you can very well lose yourself in it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, for your a person that doesn't look at fashion as a way of expressing, it could be a way of expressing, and the way you dress, I think also, I mean, you know, just going on dark colors and bright colors, I know that I'm sure that a lot of people do the same, but I mean, I wear color a lot of the time because sometimes I'm really down or I don't feel too good, and if I wear color, it always makes me feel better.
Valid.
You know, it just, you know, so I think there is something in you know, kind of wearing something that actually, I think you're probably right when you said that, but I do think it can help too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like I said, it helped me. It created a safe space for me to really allow myself to explore myself and be who I am. Like,
I think that's a good.
Yeah, because fashion is not just clothing, right? Like fashion is lifestyle, it's expression, it's art, it's, you know what I mean? It's identity. There's so much wrapped up in that like, yeah, when you're around people who allow you to, you know, who hold a safe space for you to do that, then it's super wonderful. It was wonderful for me as well. Really, like I said, like the first half of my life, it was like not okay to be as unique as I was. Yeah. I was made fun of. I was really bullied significantly for a lot of things. The second half of my life, well, currently, but the second half of the first half.
You haven't got that old, please.
It was like, oh, Yossi, like that's super cool. I've never seen anyone dressed like that, or like that's so unique, and like that's super cool. And I did it because that's how. I mean, even now, like I'm not in the industry, but like fashion's a huge part of who I am. It's not that I'm getting, you know, it's not clothing, it's fashion for me. And so that expression has lasted with me, and it's a beautiful thing, you know? But in anything, you got to be aware. It's like, are you finding yourself in what you're doing, or are you losing yourself in what you're doing?
Yeah, there is that line. Have you ever, I mean, you probably haven't, but I mean, have you ever worn something that looked right, but just felt wrong?
Something that ask me that again?
That looked right. But it just felt wrong?
No. If I'm wearing it and I wear it out of the house, then it's because it feels right.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I've looked back at photos of myself and seen some outfits that are wildly cringe. And I'm like...
Yeah, but at that time...
it was just like exactly how I felt, how I wanted to show up, and like it was the thing.
It's a hard one when you look back and you look and you think, I'm sure I've got loads of pictures that I look back and I think, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I mean... But I rarely think, oh my God, what happened to you?
But I've never worn anything that makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things about my life is that no one's ever told me how to dress, ever. So I've always been able to wear whatever I've wanted, and I've never had to like, play myself short on that.
How did you sort of, I mean, you said all these things actually pointed to the fact that you actually you had no choice but to sort of disappear and evolve. But I just wondered, was there, once you left and you decided to go from everything, I think it was like a year or so, was it? A year?
Yeah, over a year.
Because I remember that you were just not around, right? For a year.
I was not around.
And I can't remember, but I think you got rid of everything on your socials and you just went.
It was time to go.
So you just decided to do that, or was it a moment of like, okay, that's it. I've got to sort this out, or what? Yeah.
So this is the thing. So I was gonna go and just hang out at my parents' place for a few months, and then I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling him what my plan was, and he was like, "Can I be honest with you?" And I said, "Of course. You're one of the closest people in my life." And he's like, "The idea of you moving into your parents' place while you figure it out and like save some money while you live in their spare bedroom," he's like, "sounds depressing as fuck." He's like, "I know you." He's like, "Get on a plane and don't stop." He's like, "You'll figure out your money, you'll figure out your clients, you'll figure out what you're going to do." He's like, "But just keep going." And, it was a really wonderful lesson because it reminded me that a lot of people offer advice, but they forget about the person that they're giving the advice to. And he really saw me in that advice. And he's like, "That advice is good for other people, but you're not a playing it safe kind of guy. And when you don't play it safe, you really find inspiration. And like, I've seen you do it countless times." So that was that. So I was like, fuck it. And I
That's true.
I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand, something I was familiar with. I went to Koh Samui.
But were you actually familiar with that area before?
Yeah, I've been to Thailand a bunch throughout my life. Yeah, exactly. And then I literally just like got a nice little like resort bungalow by the water. I was gonna sit and meditate and journal and like just do all the things. You know what I mean? Like, and then when I got there, and I closed my eyes to meditate, and I have had a meditative practice my whole life, but that day when I sat down, like everything rushed in. A lot of shame, judgment, guilt, didn't feel safe, and all this stuff just kind of came up. And then that was like really like, okay, like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, and this is crazy, like, because I didn't, and it was just time, like, and I had to sit with it all, and that's why, yeah.
And how long were you there for?
So I disappeared from the world for about a year. I released all socials and stuff. I had WhatsApp for my parents and email for like the bank or notifications, and I literally disappeared from the world for about a year. We connected in that August, so I guess it was about 8 or 9 months before I even got back onto socials, because then we reconnected when I was in Dahab, when I was in Egypt in August of 2023. And yeah, it was just a very important time. And then I just traveled and I just let myself flow and see what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. I just I had to release my identity because, the reason why I deleted socials and all this stuff, and when I met people would be like, "Oh, what do you do?" Like, most people
Everybody asks. I mean, I think that's just...
And so for me, my answer was like, just exist. And then like some people would be like, "Cool."
Oh, I bet you a lot of people just say, "Well, you can afford to exist."
Cool story. Yeah, you know what I mean? But then other people have been like, "Wow, like tell me more." And like, I didn't tell people my name because I didn't want them to Google me, because if you Google me, you know what I mean?
So wait, did you invent a name?
I show up. No, I just would never answer. If people were like, "What's your name?" I'd be like, "If it's all good with you, I prefer not to mention."
Wow, that sounds like
And it was wild for me because like everything before was built on my clout, my status, my fashion industry. And then like, so I wasn't talking about fashion anymore. I wasn't giving my name. I didn't want people to search me. Not that I have anything to hide, but I just didn't want the conversation to be like, oh, cool, you used to do this. Or, whoa, you have these followers. And like, I didn't want to have the same conversations anymore because I wanted to I wasn't ashamed of my life, but I knew where all those conversations went. I could have answered any question somebody asked me 1,000,000 times in 17 different ways. But I was like, I don't want to bring that in. I want to see who I am without the industry, who I am without that identity, without the clout, without the, you know what I mean? And then like see how that was emotionally for me.
Do you think you actually have to go to a place where no one wants you, and no one knows you to find yourself? I mean, with you, obviously, but what I'm saying is, do you think that's a prerequisite? That
I don't
you
think
should
so.
Go somewhere where you can think?
I don't think so. I think that everyone's different. I think that for me, I had to create an environment for what I needed at the time. And I needed to rewire my brain. I needed to be somewhere where, like, for a long time where nobody knew me. And that's where I was able to do my best work, you know, like on myself. So for everybody is different. You know what I mean? Some people can just be in their own city and just do their own thing and figure, like, it's different for everybody. I'm an extremist for a lot of things. So for me though, I was like, okay, this is an extreme shift. I need to do something extreme from here. And I wasn't like, what's the most extreme thing I can do? It's just in my DNA. It's just how my brain goes. And I was just like, I'm going to disappear for a while and I'm going to see what this looks like on the other side.
Yeah. No, that kind of, and how long was that stage?
It was about 8 months before I started like really sharing more on socials, like, you know what I mean? I got back onto socials, started sharing more of my life. And, you know, when I took everything away, like everything that I did, the fashion stuff, like you name it, stripped away my identity completely. I really started leaning in more to my spirituality, which since I was a child, I've always been a really spiritual kid, and my emotional spaces, because I had so much to process. And I learned how much information was in my emotions, because I've always been an emotional person, not like crying every day, but really feeling deeply. And I finally was able to isolate both those things and say, okay, so like when I'm not all of these things, who am I? How do I feel about these things? What's showing up about my identity? Like, why are these things so hard to release? Why is this showing up? This shame, this fear, this guilt, this judgment. And I sat with those things one at a time. Like, and it really kind of mapped out what I do now. But it was really important for me to, you know, to stop like equating what I did with who I was. And that was really hard, because who I was what I did, the people that knew me in the industry, the places that I was. And
no,
it's like,
I can imagine it's so.
So who are you without all those things and all those validations and all the things that
do you think people can get to that point without actually having to go somewhere where no one knows you?
I think that it really comes down to how you're building out your boundaries and what you need.
And how far you need it, I guess, if you're really.
I don't know. Like, it's such a personal conversation that, like, on a one-on-one, but I mean, it helps, because then you go to places where, like, you're not in the same societies, the same cultures. You're not going to bump into people that you know.
Might be
you
gentler.
don't have to make excuses.
Might be gentler then, in a way.
I think in some ways it's more abrasive, because now you're kind of alone. You're a bit more transient. But then on the other hand, it's like you can go to any country and nobody knows you, and you can decide who you want to be that day, that week, that month.
So in a way, you can build your
you can challenge yourself, right? Like, you can be like, who am I? Like, okay, so nobody knows me. My parents aren't here. My friends aren't here. I'm not going to bump into anybody. I'm in some random foreign land. So, like, who am I now when I'm not, you know, validating?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So,
like, oh, I'm used to being this way, but like, maybe I don't want to laugh at those things anymore. And maybe I want to eat a different food or dress a different way, or like whatever the case is. So I think it's a really, really personal conversation. But I think that going away was something that for me was really important, because I needed to rewire my brain. I had to be as far away from who I was and the people that knew me as possible, so that I could see who I was on the other side without anything bringing me back.
So, taking that all into account, and you're now in a specific part of your life, I wanted to ask you, what are you building now? Because obviously you're at a point where you are now building, okay? Why now? Obviously it's been a while, and you found who's it for? And is this the most you version? Now, I'm assuming the way you are at the moment, you're going to say something like, well, this is how I am now in this particular moment. I don't know, which is marvelous, because I guess that when you've been through something traumatic, you don't particularly want to go back there. I mean, you remember it in the most horrible way, not in a good way. So I'm assuming that, I mean, this is you at the moment, and you've got something that you want to share because you're sociable and you like people, and you want to help people not go through that dreadful dark moment, or get there quicker. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like when I look back at my life, I lived a life by design. I don't look back at my life and go, I made some terrible mistakes. The industry was bad for me. I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like rediscovering, I love the industry. I love the 20 years that I was in it, the people that I met, the work that I did, the things that I did. Mm-hmm. What happened with me was what I help people with right now. It's like, what happens when you build a life by design, right? You're intuitive and you're focused and you're doing things that are aligned with your mission, with the person that you are. You're a good person and everything. And then one day you wake up and you go, I don't want any of it anymore though. Like, so now what? Because I thought that this should be going somewhere, but all of a sudden I don't want that relationship anymore. I don't want to work in that job anymore. I don't want to be around these friends anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you do then? Because most people hear about like, oh, you have a midlife crisis and you work corporate and all of a sudden you want to break free and be on your own. It's like, but what happens when you actually follow your life plan and it makes so much sense? I live like very, very authentically throughout my life. And then I was like, well, now what? So those are the people that I work with. People that are going through really major life choices and like major life defining transitions. Where
what's
it's
sort of like they've got to where they wanted or thought they wanted, and then they suddenly realize, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like, and these are big conversations because they involve family, they involve identity, they involve finance, they involve locations. I mean, they involve so many aspects of people's lives. And so like, what ends up happening is people start losing themselves. Oh, well, I should keep on doing this because I've been doing it for so long. Like, no, I should still be really close to this person because I've known them for so long. Like, no matter how toxic my parents are, I still need to be there because I'm their child. And I really help people stop losing themselves and really start choosing themselves again, right? Just to live free from like the fear, the shame, the guilt, the judgment that shows up for choosing yourself and being like, no, it's okay that I choose myself. It's not selfish. It's selfless. And like, I'm different now. And everything in my life does have to change. And I don't know what that looks like on the other side. And so like my passage from who I was to who I am now was my evolution, right? From like my unbecoming to like who I'm becoming. And that's a constant evolutionary path.
So how do you help people in that way? You've obviously got something now. Yeah. Because obviously I'm here, guys. So, we're going to hear this together. So, I mean, obviously there's a full version that people can have a look at, but just give me an abbreviated version so that it gets people excited. I am. So,
Totally. So the foundation of what I do is emotional intelligence. And I work with people on reframing, re-understanding the ego, using information from their emotions, not just being reactive to their emotions, and then looking at their identity and like how that's shifting and why it's so hard for them to release certain things, and right, because all those things are really hyper connected. So I work with heart, mind, body, and soul. Heart is emotional intelligence. Mind is like rewiring your brain. Body is nervous system regulation, because sometimes we want to make these big choices or we get these triggers in life, but we can't see them clearly because our bodies are so worked up. So when you're able to really calm the body, you can actually look at your emotions as information. And then soul, right? How much are you living in your truth, right? Like through meditative practices, through being very radically honest with how authentic you are, why you're scared to be that, all these things kind of show up. So I really help people that are going through really like major life defining transitions, find their way through to the other side.
Okay, so obviously a lot of people I've worked with you, Yossi, so I know what that vaguely means, but do you know what I mean? Somebody who thinks, oh, crumbs, that sounds really complex. I mean, you've got some sort of entry point so people realize a little bit what any of those words mean. I think everybody's read the emotional intelligence kind of book type. But I mean, when you start talking about soul and that, and you think, oh God, I'm not going to end up in,
No, nothing like
here
that.
with the guru kind of thing. I mean, that is just the way the world looks. So, I mean, but you've got a completely different idea, and you start, and you're doing it now. And what can people do? I mean, now, in order to even decipher what these the pillars are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, like the foundation is emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is being able to experience emotions as information. So if you're triggered by things, if you're fearful of things, if you're trying to make big choices and they're scaring you because a lot of judgment is coming up, a lot of shame is coming up, I help you sit with the emotions as information and really understand yourself through those so you can be honest with yourself and actually live the life that you really want.
Okay. It sounds lovely, but it obviously comes with work, Yossi.
It does. Yeah, this work isn't about feeling happy all the time.
Yeah.
It's about being able to understand emotions and to sit with the hard ones.
Okay. All right. So before I ask you to actually tell me, I guess, where that goes, if people are looking at this and saying, oh, well, okay, I'll give it a go. Let me see what he's on about. Then you're obviously going to tell me how people can get.
Yeah, for sure.
But first,
okay,
because I like putting people on the spot.
Okay.
And I think it's fun and a bit gossipy. I want to do a bit of the fire round of, like really fast questions, but don't overthink.
Fast answers.
And it's okay to say, I can't think that fast. So don't go into it too much. Okay. 10, right? Were you ever addicted to attention?
Yes.
Did the beard give you power?
Yes.
Did fashion inflate your ego?
That's a big conversation.
Okay. Did trauma humble you?
Yes.
Have you reinvented yourself to escape something?
No.
Was the moment you felt like a fraud?
Never.
Did success make you restless?
No.
Who misunderstood you the most?
My family.
Are you more dangerous now or softer?
Dangerous.
If I met you in 2010 again, would I recognize you?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're always going to be Yossi, I'm afraid.
Always me.
Okay, so tell me now, because obviously I know, because I had a little sneak preview, that you do have a project that people can get involved in, just to get a little kind of...
For sure, yeah, exactly. So if anybody's listening and they're curious to know, like, well, okay, I am going through a big life thing, but I don't know what to make of it or do. I just created a free assessment. It's a self-awareness deep dive, and it kind of tells you why you're making the choices you're making, where you are right now, and the steps you can take from that place. And you can use that information to do whatever you want with it. So it's 20 questions. It gives you where you are, where to go. And then it breaks down different aspects of yourself, like your heart, your mind, your body, your soul. And it really helps you understand a lot more about where you are with things. Because if you're going to change something, if you're going to evolve, if you're at a space where you're now asking yourself these questions, you need a starting point.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. So the clarity map that I created is designed for that. They're super hyper personalized responses, and it's a really wonderful place to start.
Okay, and I guess if you do this, and you then want to go a little further, that's when one can check.
Exactly. So you can either just sign on for a 30-minute call with me. It's free. Just if you have your responses, you can download them, and then we can talk about them. If it brought something up, if you're confused by something, if you want to dive in deeper to something that really showed up, you can do that. Or you can go right into the Passage program.
Okay, and that's the name of your program.
Yeah, so that's an 11-week program, and that's like very much one-on-one with me, and that's its own structure and its own container. It's 11 weeks, and we do one-on-one really deep work. It's very liberating as well. It's not all so deep and scary. You'll have your moments, but it's really liberating and super inspiring to see how people really show up for themselves and face themselves. And but it's an 11-week program, and by the time you get to the other side, I guarantee you won't be the same. You'll be way more liberated, way more authentic.
Well, all I know is that I've worked with Yossi. It is scary, but then the results are very, they take time, obviously, and it just starts you on the journey. But once you get into the journey, you just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that now, Yossi, if you can just say where people can, I mean, on socials, will they find this on socials, or how do they get?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to my website, just my name, yossifisher.com, and the clarity map is there. You can find it on Instagram.
You've got it everywhere, so it's easier for people,
I've got
right?
it everywhere. If you search my name on social platforms, now that you know what I look like, I'm pretty much the only Yossi Fisher that shows up anyways. But Yossi_Fisher on Instagram, and you can explore me from there.
And it's the FIS.
FISHER.
Okay.
YOSSI. FISHER.
Yeah, no, because there's obviously
different spellings.
Yeah, okay, fine. And there they can see everything,
everything. They can
download
content,
everything.
Download everything, do the assessment, and just explore my world from there.
That's brilliant. Well, Yossi, thank you very much. And to all of you, if you actually want to keep in touch, I don't know if I'm going to be in Vietnam for the next one, but if you want to make sure that you actually get some of these marvelous conversations I'm doing from maybe now other parts of the world, remember to subscribe on Spotify and YouTube in order not to miss anything.